and welcome to another 31 Days of Horror 2016. I just realized, you know what, I haven't even told you what my 31 Days of Horror is all about. See, because everybody does something a little different. Heck, they call them different things. 31 Days of Horror, 31 Days of Halloween, 31 Days Hath October, maybe just 31, Halloween month, horror month. Everybody has a different name for what they're doing, and essentially everybody is taking the 31 days of October and celebrating Halloween and horror in general, because that, you know, October is horror month, man. That's our thing. Also, everybody seems to do a different thing. Some people like to watch one horror movie every day for, you know, the 31 days of October, whether they've seen them before or not. Some people do crafts. Some people like to do just do a video. Their big thing is they'll do a Halloween or horror related video every day for October, and you know, post it. Maybe they don't normally do daily videos, and that's their thing this month. For me, my big thing is I watch at least 31, or that's my goal, is to at least watch at least 31 horror movies I've never seen before, or I don't recall ever having seen before, which would include films that I'm pretty sure I must have seen, but for some reason I can't remember anything about them, and especially even after watching it, I still don't remember anything about them, even though I know it's almost for certain that I've seen it. A lot of them are going to be stuff I may have seen, you know, Sunday afternoons when I was a kid, or, you know, actually most of it's going to be stuff I saw when I was a kid. And I just forget it. So that's what I'm kind of trying to do. Now, I as much as I would like to get a video out a day and watch a movie a day, it generally doesn't happen. I have other stuff going on, but I try and get as many in as possible and get them out as quickly as possible. So yes, my 31 Days of Horror will probably continue past October, just to get the videos in, even though I will have already seen the films during October. It takes time to do these videos. In today's video, we're looking at the third film, which I covered, Fifth Day. So, as you can tell, I'm already behind. So, what are we talking about? We are talking about a sequel to The Woman in Black, The Woman in Black 2, Angel of Death. Now, if you haven't seen The Woman in Black, the original one, it's pretty cheap, generally under $10, pretty common. You should be able to track it down. Stars Daniel Radcliffe, and of course The Woman in Black. Go track it down. Unfortunately, there will be a few spoilers in this video with regards to the first film, so you may, well, honestly, just pause it or stop it here. I don't mind. Go track down the first Woman in Black, watch it, and then come back if you're still interested in knowing about the sequel. I'll give you a chance here to stop it, so go ahead. Okay, now that those people are gone, yeah, to all those people who are left who have seen The Woman in Black, the original one, this sequel is essentially like a direct sequel to the first film. The Woman in Black is back, though I don't know if she's actually played by the same actor or anything like that, or if she's even played by an actor. Yeah, she's got to be an actor or something like that, or multiple actors, who knows. But that character is at least back. Obviously, it's right in the title. It'd be kind of hard not to. But you know, Daniel Radcliffe is not back, and we all know why, because we saw the first film. But yeah, what is the story behind this one? Well, it's essentially, I guess it's about like 40 years roughly after the first film takes place. It is World War II now, and the film opens up with London being bombed and such. So what the idea is behind this particular film is there are two, you know, teachers or headmistresses or whatever you want to call them, who are taking children to the house, Eelmarsh House, from the first film, the same house, the same location. So the house returns taking it to this house to get them out of London, away from the bombings. And I can't remember if they were all orphans or if it was a combination of orphans and people who had parents who had had to, maybe they were off to war, or maybe some just couldn't leave the city, so they were getting these kids away to be taken care of and away from the bombings and such. Now there is a main kid who sort of crucial part of the story, who has his parents killed in the bombings that just happened at the opening of this film. And oddly enough, he's the main child, but he's essentially mute from the trauma, so he doesn't really say anything. He just draws and writes, which is odd, because he's willing to communicate and he's willing to write down sentences and words and stuff, but he won't say them. Whatever. All up in his head or something like that. But there are a few other kids who are I guess main characters who have speaking parts and are involved and such like that. But I'd say about half of them are kind of just background. They're just there to be the kids. And then you have the two teachers, both female, and then there is a male, kind of like a teacher, kind of like a principal of sorts, who takes them to the house in a bus, and then but he then leaves, essentially, leaving just the two adult figures and the kids at Eelmarsh House. There is one other adult character who is a main character here, and this is a soldier, I guess a British pilot, who they meet. They're on the same train together, going out to the countryside, and he is actually going to be stationed at a I guess it's a little convenient, a military base, an airfield, because he is a pilot, nearby. So you already know he's a soldier. He's going to be kind of play probably the hero character in the film. So essentially they go to the house, and just like in the first film, if you see the woman in black, a kid's gonna die. Well, hey, we just brought a bunch of kids to the house where the woman in black lives. Well, you can figure out how it goes from there, I guess, right? The film is directed by Tom Harper, who I don't really know him from anything, but when I looked him up, I found out he did direct a few episodes of Peaky Blinders, which I really, really enjoyed. I think I did a Show Me on that. And he's just recently done some a miniseries on War and Peace. So, I mean, he is a working director, but he hasn't done a lot. I wouldn't say he's young, but he's not old either. I think he's like roughly 3 years younger than I am. So he could have done plenty of films by now, but his repertoire is a little small. This film is written by a John Croker, who honestly, nothing, and I think it kind of shows. I'll get to that later. He has done some story editing on a bunch of things like Barbarian Sound Studio and the Deep Blue Sea and the Iron Lady and the Woman in Black. So he's done something with regards to writing, but in terms of actual writing and screenplay work, it's not that he hasn't done anything. He's done very little, and I mean very, very little. So I'm not sure how he landed this gig, but I'm guessing it was he came cheap. That's the only thing I can think of. Now, the younger of the two teachers, who eventually, has sort of a love interest thing with the soldier, is someone who, how would you describe it? She has a look about her, but I wouldn't say I recognized her from anything. She was in Eye in the Sky, the film Eye in the Sky, after this, actually. Yeah, she was in it after Woman in Black too. But yeah, I had not seen her in anything. And you know what, I hope the best for her going forward, because she does a pretty good job with the material that she's given here. So hopefully she can get more from this as a result. Now, her love interest, on the other hand, is played by Jeremy Irvine, and he, right off the bat, I recognize from somewhere, but he has one of those, those faces, the jaw lines and stuff. So it could have been anybody. Honestly, it could have been anybody. And his performance in the film is it's okay. It does the job. I wouldn't say it's anything spectacular, but he is, if you've seen it, and I only know this because I just recently watched it this year, from the movie War Horse. He's the main character of Albert Narracott. So that's where I knew him. Outside of that, I don't know him from really anything. But if I hadn't watched War Horse like just this year or the last 6 months, I probably wouldn't have recognized him either. But yeah, he's that guy, the guy on the cover, like the poster for War Horse. That's him. And you know what? He's got the look of Hollywood. He can probably do it. And you know what? Maybe with a little bit more experience under his belt, he will be able to do something. But nothing blew me away with him. He was just not bad, which is saying something sometimes, because there's some really bad actors out there. Finally, we get sort of the head mistress, the older female character here, who is, plays the non-believing, when things are starting to go wrong. She doesn't believe in ghosts. There's always a logical explanation for everything, right? And that's played by Helen McCrory, who is from a few things. I mean, she's had a long career spanning from the 90s, doing all sorts of things, television shows, movies, but I think people are probably going to know her mostly from a few choice roles. One being she was Mama Jean from Hugo. She was in the film... she was in the television show Penny Dreadful. It's a television show where she plays Madame Kali. So she was in a bunch of episodes of that. She's Aunt Polly from Peaky Blinders, which is where I automatically knew her from. But I think fans will know her from the Harry Potter films. Half-Blood Prince and Deathly Hallows Part 1 and 2, because she's Narcissa Malfoy. So, those Harry, do they have a name? Harry Potterites or something? I don't know. We'll probably pick her out right there. But for me, she's from Peaky Blinders. And she does, she's fantastic. And she's great. She's good in this one as well. She plays the character exactly the way it should be played. But yeah, she Peaky Blinders all the way. That's where I know her from, and it's amazing performance, amazing show. Go watch it. So yeah, just like the first film, though, not as far back. Obviously, we're in World War II here. You do have that, if you like period pieces, you do have that period aesthetic. Now the house is kind of gone. It's gone downhill. It is. They have put in power. So it's not all candles and stuff. They have a generator and they have lights around, but it doesn't go everywhere. They do have flashlights of sorts now, giant flashlights. But they're still using candles and they're still using lanterns. And the house is kind of falling apart in places. As they say when they show up, it wouldn't be fit for men from the barracks, so why is it fit for children? Which they explain it's all we got, right? Now they are expecting to have more kids and more teachers arrive, but we never get to that point. Why? Because, the woman in black shows up and starts killing kids. Or not killing them, but forcing them to kill themselves. That's the spoilers. Remember, guys, I told you if you didn't see Woman in Black, you should have watched that before you came here. And you know what? It's the same type of deal here. This is, it's kids are dying. Of course, first headmistress thinks that it's young teacher's fault, and she's not doing what she's supposed to do. And young teacher's just like, she's going off like right from the get-go. She has no problem leaving the kids behind to go exploring because she hears a noise or thinks there may be somebody else there. Like it really matters, like they get a flat tire and the dude's changing the tire on the bus, and all the kids are sort of milling outside and stuff, and she goes off like she's like her only instructions are stay with the bus, kids, and then takes off. There's like no other adult supervision here, and she takes off and she comes back. They've already fixed the bus and everybody's on it and they're waiting for her, but she decided that she thought that she saw someone or thought there was somebody else there, so she had to go exploring. And it's like, oh my god, like honestly, I can understand why headmistress, played by Helen, is a little, doesn't exactly have the confidence with her as a character, and I don't blame her. So when it comes down to, I guess the character is Eve Parkins. When it comes down to her, it really is, you can understand not believing her. It's a little weird. Now, I do have some problems with this film. In the first Woman in Black, we remember that at nighttime, I don't know, it was weird. Like there was a time period where it was high tide, right? And it always seemed to be, what was it, midday or something like that? I don't know. But the high tide thing here, though it does come into play and you do hear about it, you don't see it quite like you did in the first film. It does get mentioned a couple of times here and there, but it's not as much of a factor as I think it was in the first film, because in the first film they really used it to isolate the location. This location seemed like it was off the way, but it didn't seem like it was so isolated, because you know what, the guy who's driving the bus, who's sort of like the principal character, he comes to the house at the beginning and he shows up a little bit later and he's there at the end type thing. The soldier guy, he comes several times. Of course, you understand he's got the hots for the girl, the young teacher, but still, there's actual people like visiting this house other than, the main character, like you had in the first film. And none of them have any knowledge of, prior events at this house. So you're not getting this foreboding sense from anybody who's coming there. They're all just like, this is an old house. And there's none of that. There's no real pre-warnings going on in this film like you got from the first film. There's none of the, there is that old man who's supposed to be that the bearer of bad news, essentially, foretelling of bad things to come, but he doesn't really do anything. He's just there. And it's weird. There's a lot of foreshadowing in this film. Like even the soldier, he's at one point he says, "I can't take you to that place because I have to go back to the base." And then you find out later on that there really isn't any real reason why he would have to go back to the base. And I won't get into that because I don't want to spoil that aspect of the film. But if you've seen it, I think you understand what I'm saying, right? Because he's kind of in charge. We'll put it that way. And so when you're in charge, you really don't. You guess you make your own rules. So I don't get why he would just need to leave her there. Considering he does tend to leave the base rather often. But yeah, for some reason he had to leave her. He had to go back to the base. So that was a little weird. But his character, it really is, he's brought in to literally save the day. And I had a problem with that because you have two adult female characters who are there. One's a believer, one's a non-believer. And yet they aren't the ones who are charged with saving the day. It's up to the soldier character. It really is disappointing that the writer felt the need to write in a male character to save the day. A male character who wasn't even necessary to make this film work. He was written in for the sole purpose of being the hero and saving the day. Even his backstory and his fear of water and stuff like that was pointless. It didn't add to the story. It didn't do anything for it. It was really not needed. His character was not needed. Yeah, I think the film kind of it was one of the. It just seemed written in. It seemed like they couldn't come up with ways to explain A or explain B or explain C. So it's like, well, we'll just write in another character and he'll be able to fill in those spots. And it's just like, that's just lazy. The other thing, there are a few jump scares here. So if you're looking for a scary ghost film, there are a couple of startling moments, but. One of the things about the original Woman in Black is, yes, there are startling moments, but it is filled, it's soaked with tension and suspense, and there are so many moments of just like, oh my god, is something happening? Is something going to happen? What is down there? What are we looking at? What's going to happen? Is there, there's so much of that happening in The Woman in Black that I was so disappointed that The Woman in Black 2 just kind of told the story, and a very compressed story at that. The Woman in Black is, it's a slow burn. Like a good period ghost story you would think would be, whereas this sequel was just like, you get there, kids are dying, and immediately it's like, nosy teachers off figuring stuff out, and boom, there's a crazy woman in black. I see the woman in black. The woman in black. Blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, there's no real research of the woman in black. It's just, there is a ghost in this house. Doesn't matter what or why. There's a ghost in this house, and she wants the little mute boy. That's it. There's none of the there's no real tracking down of the history and all that kind of stuff to defeat the spirit like you had in the first film or in most ghost stories. No, it really is like, let's just get out of here. Which I don't have a problem with. I mean, that's the logical explanation anybody generally has. Like, this house is haunted. Let's get out of here. Like Poltergeist. Let's get the hell out of this house. Let's move away. So I get that and such, but it just, I don't know. It really seemed like the story in general was phoned in. It was one of those things where it really did seem to be like, okay, we had Daniel Radcliffe, Woman in Black. People really responded to that. Let's make a sequel. Here you go. Give it to this guy. He'll write it up. Let's make it. And outside of the fact that, the costumes and such were good, and, the location, obviously, the same location from the first film, was really, really awesome. Other than that, it was just kind of meh. Set design is good. It's another one of those things where the look and feel of the film is good, but the story kills it. Even though, like I said, the acting was up there. They did the best with what they had. They just didn't have much going for them. There was no. It was just, good writing and a good story are very, very important when it comes to film, or when it comes to anything, any of these type of mediums. And unfortunately, I think that's where this film drops the ball. It's still watchable. There's nothing wrong with it. And as a sequel, we all know that sequels often tend to not be as good as the first film. So, yes, I mean, the Woman in Black could be a good recurring character. There was reason for her to return, based off of what we saw in the first film. There's still reason for her to return based off of what we see in the second film. And I don't think she actually necessarily needs to be confined to this house. The first one was all about, telling her story. The second one was just about her being there and killing stuff. We could technically have a third film where the house isn't even involved, and maybe it's the 70s, maybe it's the 80s, who the heck knows, maybe it's the 60s. We move it ahead, every so many years, and we do another period piece, but we put it somewhere else. Maybe it moves away from the house and it's just somebody researching the stories or something or other, and that brings about the Woman in Black, and maybe she is just turns into a sort of the angel of death, the actual angel of death. Maybe she ends up just being a symbol of death. Maybe she is death, something along those lines, where we don't have to I don't know. You could totally do something with there. Honestly, I'm not a writer, but I've got ideas already coming to my mind for a Woman in Black 3. So yeah, I could see myself watching a third one in this series easily, and I think it could be, if done well and properly, be better than this number 2. But like I said, number 2 isn't all bad. It's just not all good. So I don't give it necessarily a recommend to watch, but I do think if you've seen the first film and you're looking for something to check out, go for it. There are worse things to see, and we'll probably watch them this October. So we're getting better, but we'll see if that continues. Anyways, thanks for watching. Let me know down below if you've seen the film. No spoilers. Well, no more than I gave. Till next video, take care. Have a good one.